Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Poppy Moon. I am an associate professor at the University of West Alabama. And today we're going to talk about what to do when we have an ethical issue, an ethical dilemma in school counseling. Okay, so you may or may not know if you're just starting out, but school counseling has their very own set of ethical standards that we are required to follow. So if you have a book entitled The ASCA National Model, a Framework for School Counseling Programs, you can get this from the ASCA website, and it's something that's really, really good for you to have anyway. All my students have one of these, and they refer to it as we learn the ASCA National Model. But if you go in here on page 15 all the way to page 28, it talks about all the ethical things that we have to follow as school counselors. And at the very end of it, on page 28, it has ethical decision-making. And this is where we are right now. We're going to look at ethical decision-making and how we would do that. We use right now different types of ethical decision-making models, but the one that's most popular is one that's called STEPS. And STEPS has 9 different parts to it, and that is also on page 28 in the ASCA National Model Framework text. So let's talk about what they are. The first one is to define the problem emotionally and intellectually. So when you first hear about what's going on, say that you find out a student is pregnant or that someone is being abused, we need to look at our personal emotions first. So we look at 2 different things. What are your emotional thoughts and what are your intellectual thoughts? What are the facts? So if I found out that a student had come to me and that she was pregnant, emotionally, I would have worry for her and for the child. I would worry about her future. I would worry about how things are going to go with her parents when they talk to her and talk to me about it. Also, just kind of a nervous feeling because I don't want to infringe on a family and what's going on with them, but I also don't want to not be a good counselor and follow up with them. So the intellectual things that would be on something like that is, I know that she's got to get help. She's far too young to be able to have a baby on her own. I know that I need to figure out how I can support the family and things that I can do to assist them. Part of the facts is I don't want her to be neglected or abused. I want her to be able to get good health care. So all of these issues, emotional and intellectual, are coming up. The second thing that I will do is apply the ASCA ethical code. So you would go through the entire code and look for places where it says, these are things that I want to do. These are things that I need to do to help these students. Something I might worry about if I was dealing with a pregnant teenager is issues of confidentiality. Important to keep that to myself, but also knowing that because of the fact that she's a minor, that we're going to have to share this information with her parents as well. So go through the ASCA code, and there's probably going to be several different parts of the code that are going to relate to the problem. So if you're going through, don't just be like, I see this one. This is the one that I'm going to use. You need to really go through it with a nice fine-tooth comb and make sure that you are hitting on all the different ethical standards that need to be focused on. The next thing that you need to do is consider the chronological and developmental levels of the child. So what is the student's age and how does the intellect impact the issue? So she's older, if we're talking about a pregnant girl, she's older, she is able to cognitively understand what's going on. And I will go through at that point, I will be speaking to her as if she is, older and that she can listen to me and what I have to say and the problems and kind of go from there on how to deal with it. Another thing that the next step is I need to think about the rights of the parents and guardians and of the minor's rights. So parents do have the right to know if their child is in harm's way. And that's something as a school counselor, you need to learn how to balance so that you can keep things confidential with the child when you can. And then when you can't, you need to be able to go through those steps and talk to the parents with the child and see how you can assist them. The next part that you will do is apply moral principles. And these are the moral principles. Okay, the first one is beneficence. And that is when the counselor is just checking out, making sure that they're taking care of the welfare of the kid. They're being very proactive. So one of the ways that I'm proactive as a school counselor is when I go into the classroom and I do large guidance lessons. One of those might be talking about friendship skills. I'm trying to be proactive and assist the student so that they have those skills for when, down the line, when they have problems with friends, they can think back, oh, I remember when Dr. Moon talked to me about those things. And that was important. And I can use that. I can use that in my life. The next one is autonomy. The sun is making that shine right in my eye. And that is independence. We want our students to feel like they have the right to make their own choices of their own free will. So as a school counselor, I don't force kids to, maybe my advice, maybe I'm saying, well, I think you should, this is a great path that you might can go down, but I hear what you're saying, that your path is something that you would like to pursue, and I'm going to have to respect that. I need to be aware that I should tell the student if I think, I don't think you're making the best decision, that we can talk about the pros and cons of that, but ultimately I will allow that child to make the decision for them. Example, say that you have a girl and a boy, they're dating. The girl is unhappy with the relationship. She thinks that she should break up with the boyfriend. I will assist her with that. But let's say that she chooses not to break up with the boyfriend and he's not treating her very well. Then I might say, let's think of this from some different angles, and also bring up my feelings and how I think that she might could go down a different path. Ultimately, she's going to make her own decision, and I'm going to respect that. Non-maleficent, that is not causing harm, deliberately not causing harm to other people and not doing actions that risk harming others. For example, I will not use confidential information that I have to manipulate a client. So let's say a kid has come to me because they are causing problems in class. He and I have talked before about a time when he stole money out of his parents' purse, his mom's purse. I wouldn't say, oh, you're causing problem. If you don't stop, I'm going to call and tell your mom that you stole money from the purse. See, it's just, I'm not going to cause harm. I'm not going to do something like that. Loyalty, the counselor is truthful and respects the rights and responsibility of others. So one of the biggest jobs that I do is supporting kids and their families. I always say Dr. Moon likes to help and support. And in doing that, when I talk about confidentiality at the beginning of the year with students, when I talk about that with parents, I want to be very transparent so they know what my limits are as a counselor. And the last one of the moral principles is justice. And this is just treating people fairly. School counselors, we don't discriminate against any kid for anything. So, if it's race, sexual orientation, I know right now there are the trans issues are a big topic, and some of the counselors, especially sometimes I find that in the location that I'm at, it's hard for them to learn and grow and deal with things as they change. They might say, oh, I think that trans rights are not real. If a kid brings that up, I'm just going to shut them down right there. We don't want to do that. We want to be open. We want to listen to people. We want to have a sense of justice, that we're treating our people fairly. Okay, so here's the next part of them. Determine the course of action and their consequences. So I want to think of all the types of actions that I can do, all the different things. So if I have a pregnant girl, I'm going to think about, how am I going to contact her parents? How am I going to explain to her that there are limits to my confidentiality in this issue? How am I going to be able to give her choices and make her feel like she's in control? How is it going to impact her? How's it going to impact the student and the family? Think about different course of action. And it's stressful, guys. This is not something that's easy. Ethical dilemmas in counseling, they're hard. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's just so many different ways that you can go with stuff. So that's why we have this decision-making model, so we can spend our time looking through that and feeling like we have a framework for dealing with these questions. So the next thing, after I've come up with all of my different ideas, I'm going to evaluate the selected action. So I'm going to look at them, like I was saying before, I'm going to look at all the involved parties. I'm going to look at myself as well as a counselor. Like, how is this going to impact me? Is the student going to be angry with me forever? Or the parent's going to have a hard trouble with what I've said to them? I don't want to upset anybody. There's just a whole lot. So I'm going to evaluate that. And I'm going to eliminate the options that I know are going to cause additional problems or I'm not going to get the desired result. The next thing is consult. Always, always, always consult with your colleagues about everything. As a school counselor, you are free to talk with other school counselors about student issues, because they're your colleagues and they know that you're coming to them in confidence and they're not going to share that information with you. Another person that you can consult with is whoever is head of guidance for the entire school district. Give them a call, say, hey, what's going on? This is my problem. These are some things that I have thought about that I think might be a good course of action. What do you think? Or if you are a student, the best person that you can go to is your site supervisor or your university supervisor, and just kind of run it by them and tell them what you think. and allow them to give you some of their own ideas. Hang on, let me move this out of the way. I can't see what my next thing is. Okay, so the next part is to implement the course of action. I'm going to go ahead and do that and go through whatever I've decided. I'm going to implement it and I'm going to work through it. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at an actual example of how we might use the steps in action in a real school problem. So I would like to point out that this dilemma that I'm going to use comes directly from an article entitled Using an Ethical I can't talk today. Using an ethical decision-making model to address ethical dilemmas in school counseling. This is from some students that wrote this, I guess, in 2017. They were at the University of Texas A&M in Commerce, and that happens to be where I got my master's degree. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to use something that my my cohorts at that program would have also used. All right, so here's the situation. Miss Hannah is the counselor. The student is Julie. She's in 4th grade. Miss Hannah and Julie are talking, and Julie says, you know, things are kind of weird for us right now. We are living in hotels, or we're living in friends' living rooms because it says there they've been living in hotels or in a friend's living room when her mom cannot afford hotels, when she can't. So occasionally her mom has money and they're able to go to a hotel, but a lot of times they're bouncing around and that makes her uncomfortable. So she begs Miss Hannah. She's like, please, please don't tell my mom, because if she finds out that I told you this, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. My mom be so angry. But Miss Hannah, she's met this girl's mom before, and she thinks, you know, her mom's pretty easygoing, pretty laid back. She probably would like to know that there's some help that I have. And as a school counselor, I do have a resource that helps with short-term housing. Should I call the mom and tell her and make Julie get upset with me? What should I do? It's an ethical dilemma. So I'm going to apply the STEPS model to this. First off, I'm going to define the problem emotionally and intellectually. Emotionally, how am I feeling? Does this kiddo have a place to sleep? I don't like knowing that a kid doesn't have a great place to sleep. So that's one of the most emotional worries that I have. Is Julie going to get upset with me because I break confidentiality and share with her mom the information that I have? Or will mom be mad at Julie for keeping this a secret? Lots of things going on. Intellectually, I think Julie's mom would probably be receptive to assistance on this one. So now let's go over and check out the ethical code. First one I see right off the bat is confidentiality. We're supposed to keep confidential information private unless there's foreseeable harm. Also, it says that I need to consult others if I'm not clear about what constitutes serious and foreseeable harm. And so Ms. Hannah is wondering, does homelessness fit into this category? Next thing, we're going to look at the chronological and developmental level of the student. Julie, because she is young, she's in 4th grade, she may not understand the seriousness of homeless compared to getting in trouble, the seriousness of getting in trouble with mom. Because we know kids worry about things that adults wouldn't worry about. So she's stressed, oh, I told Miss Hannah about my problem, mom's going to get so mad, versus helping them with resources for housing. Does Julie understand that? And she probably doesn't, because she's in 4th grade. I'm going to think about the rights of the parents and the minors. Julie does have a right to confidentiality due to what she told me. She deserves that. So I'm going to apply the moral principle. Miss Hannah wants to be beneficent by being proactive and helpful, and non-maleficence. She doesn't want to cause harm to Julie by interfering or harming the relationship that she has with her. Those are some big things that we see throughout this thing. So potential courses of I still can't talk, of actions and consequences. If she helps the family, will they benefit? Yes. Will it ruin the relationship with Julie? Maybe. If she doesn't help, is the family going to keep struggling? But the relationship with Julie is still going to be good. However, Ms. Hannah has noticed that Julie's absences have become more frequent. So now we're starting to have an academic consequence that's going on. She assessed the selected action and she chooses, yeah, I think I'm going to tell Julie's mom about the situation because she thinks that the benefits are outweighing the harm. However, Ms. Hannah has also consulted with her colleagues first. And she says, you know, what could I do to make it easier? And the colleague's like, hey, here's an idea. Why don't you talk with Julie about the problem first and illustrate the two options and say, okay, this is really going to help your family and help mom. I don't know that mom's really going to get that angry with you because you shared this information with Miss Hannah. So then she decides that she's going to implement what she comes up. Julie has listened to her. She's like, hey, you know, that might really be helpful if we did tell mom and we had a place to stay that is safe. And I don't feel like I'm taking my stuff everywhere, to couches, to hotels, all of these places. I feel like this would be safe for Miss Hannah and I to share this information with my mom. So a really good thing that you can do is Google this article, Solutions to Ethical Problems in Schools by Rhonda Williams. Just Google that and it's going to bring up an example that goes through the ethical steps with an ethical problem in great detail. It's very, very interesting. I think that this would be a great idea for you since you're just learning on working on ethical problems to help you out. So once again, I'm Dr. Poppy Moon. If you have questions for me, or if you'd like to bounce any ethical issues off of me, please feel free to send me an email at pmoon@uwa.edu. So thanks so much for listening, and I'm glad that I could help you out.